Good morning, all my beautiful patrons. Today we're going to be working on our Halloween wreath, and this is what mine turned out like. I really like it. It's really cute. So, as normal, I always like to do something yarn related for the cover and then use whatever decorations that I can find. So this time it is loom knit, and I do go through all of that with you. So it's really simple. It doesn't take very long, and I really like how it looks. So mine is witch themed, and I have this black witch hat and then a sign and some black roses, all from Dollar Tree. So it's very cost effective. And I used black and green mainstays yarn, so also cost effective. And then the form itself is from Dollar Tree as well. So less than $5 for the entire wreath. So this is what it looks like. I think it's gorgeous. It's really cute. And it has a ribbon holder this time. So I've been trying to mix it up a little bit so you have a variety of different styles that you can choose from for the wreaths. But I really like this one. The cover itself is just the basic knit stitch. So I do go over that with you, but it's using two different colors, so that adds a little bit of variety of color. And it's also two strands of worsted weight held together, so also cost effective. So I hope that you guys like it, and I'll get to the tutorial now. Okay, so today we're going to be working on our Halloween wreath. This one's going to be a little bit different than the last one because I'm going to be doing it on a knitting loom. So we're going to be using the smallest knitting loom. This is a Nifty Knitter, and it is the blue loom. I believe it has 24 pegs on it. So any loom that has at least 15 pegs will work, because we're going to be using 15 of the pegs to work with. So you could use a flat loom, you could use a round loom, you could use whatever type of loom you have. Keep in mind, if you're using a different gauge, you'll have to go by whatever your loom specifies. Mine is a large loom gauge, so I need either a bulky weight yarn or a super bulky weight, or 2 strands of worsted weight put together. So, and that is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be holding 2 strands of worsted put together, and this is what it looks like when you do that. It gives it a really nice effect because you have 2 different colors. You could obviously use the same color if you wanted, but the theme for my wreath is black and this kind of acidy green, so that's what I chose to do. So, like I said, any loom that has at least 15 pegs on it, you'll need, and this little is just to remind me that this is where I need to turn at. So, because I always start at the first peg to the right of your holding peg, and then I always put a marker, if I'm doing a flat panel, where I need to stop and not go any further than that. So that's what that is. And these are just some little stitch markers that I made specifically for the loom. This is the knit one. I also have purl ones, you know, because it kind of reminds me where my knits and purls are when I'm doing a lot of ribbing. But I'm just using it as a reminder that that's where I need to stop and turn. So you're going to need your loom. You're going to need your hook, obviously. You're going to need your yarn needle, some scissors, and you're going to need a crochet hook. It doesn't matter what size. I just grabbed one off another project, but you're just going to need it to be able to seam your panel closed. So any size crochet hook. I wouldn't go too small, you know, somewhere similar to your yarn size. Your glue gun and glue sticks. You're going to need whatever yarn you're using. You don't have to use the same yarn that I'm using. You can use whatever you would like. Like I said, you can use bulky weight yarn or super bulky weight, you know, a 5 or a 6, and then you don't have to double it. But if you have worsted weight that you're going to be using, you're going to have to use 2 strands. So I held these 2 strands together and I worked it as one. So I just held them together and I worked them as a single strand. And that's what you have to do when you loom knit on a large gauge like this and you want to use worsted weight. And it also gives it a really nice effect. This is, you know, you have the 2 different tones, so you're able to add in more than one color into your wreath cover. So you're also going to need your wreath form. As always, this is the one that you can find at Dollar Tree. It's the larger one. I have heard that they're putting out even smaller ones, so I'm going to keep my eye out for that. But whatever wreath form you use, whether you get it at Dollar Tree or you use the foam ones that you buy at Walmart or the larger ones that you buy, or even if you're using a poo noodle, you know, you're just going to need whatever type you're going to be using. You can also use cardboard. You can just cut out a wreath shape and out of flat cardboard and use that. I have done that many times before. So my store has a pretty good stock on these wire run ones right now, so I have stocked up on them to be able to get through all of my wreaths through Christmas. So you're going to need that. You're going to need whatever type of decorations. You're going to need whatever type of decorations that you're going to be using. So you guys have probably already seen these. I have this witch hat. We already have a wreath for our front door that is witch themed. So I wanted to do this kind of the same thing. Pretty much my decor is all witch themed, or, you know, witch element themed. So I found this one and this witch hat and I really liked it. So I also found this was part of a larger sign that you find at Dollar Tree. It's one of those pumpkin signs, and I just took out the center. So I'm going to be using this. I also have some black roses, and I have 3 of those. That's just to add a little bit of accent. They came off of one of the rose bundles from Dollar Tree. So, but like I said, whatever your theme is, you go ahead and choose your decorations and your wreath form and everything. It's totally up to you. You don't have to copy me in any way. It's, you know, make it your own. So I'm going to set these aside for now. So to start with, we're going to need your thread or your yarn. Since we're doing worsted weight, we're going to need 2 strands. And I have never done a loom knit tutorial before. I've been loom knitting forever, but I've never done a loom knit tutorial. So hopefully my angles and everything will be okay and we won't have to mess too much with me going out of frame or anything. So so you're just going to tie a slip knot and you're going to attach it to the anchor peg here. So this one is just going to be a plain E-wrap knit piece. We're just going to do the regular stockinette. So you could do different stitches if you wanted. Later on I will be having, I think probably the Christmas wreath will have a loom knit cover that has a different stitch on it that I'll show you. So you're just going to wrap the yarn around the back, and then you're going to wrap it again. And this is going to be our cast on. You can easily just do E-wrap all the way down and then knit it back if you would like. But this is just kind of how I do it. So, and then you're going to take those that bottom loop that you had, and you're going to pull that over the top loop and off of the peg. And that is the first cast on stitch. So for the second one, we're just going to wrap it twice, and then you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to grab that bottom loop and pull it over the top loop and off the peg. And you're just going to repeat that all the way to our stitch marker. So this is just the basic E-wrap stitch. I like using it a lot. It depends on the project, but it is very quick, and it does give you a nice fabric. So and how big your panel is will depend on how big your wreath form is. So mine is a pretty standard size for the wire wreaths. So if your wreath form is different, you would probably have to, experiment a little bit. So you would have to cast on and knit a little bit and then find out exactly how much it's going to shrink. And keep in mind that knitting like this does tend to roll. So you can see that it's already trying to roll into a noodle. It will stretch. So this one will fit around the wreath form I have. It's just going to be a little snug. So you'll just want to keep that in mind. You may have to run a couple test swatches just to find out how wide you need it to be. But for the wreath form that I have, if you're using a wire wreath form that's from the Dollar Tree, you'll be able to use the 15 stitches and it should be fine. So here's my stitch marker, so I know this is the last peg that I'm going to be working. So there's your cast on and your first row. Okay, so we're just going to knit back, and you're just going to do that, knit back and forth until it's the length that you need it to be. So in order to do that, there's several different ways. How I do it is I just wrap it like this because the yarn's in the back. I just wrap it like this, and I come around the next peg from the back and wrap around like that. And once you have that first cast on row done, you can wrap around a few and then knit those off and then wrap around a few more. I would not wrap it all the way to the end because then you can have a tension issue. But you can wrap more than one at a time. So you just wrap it around the peg and keep going. And remember, you want this carrier string that's here in the back. So you don't want that on the front. If that's coming across the front, you're wrapping the wrong way. You always want to wrap from the back because that changes how the stitch looks. And then you just grab the bottom one and flip it over the top one and off the peg, just like before. When I first learned to loom knit, I used to wrap the whole thing around and then, then go back and pick them all off. And I was finding that by the time I got to the other end, my stitches were extremely tight, and I was having trouble being able to pull them off the peg. So that's just a little word of advice. Try not to wrap the whole thing around, because then you just cause more work for yourself. So because your tension gets tighter, or sometimes it can be loose in one section and really tight in the other, and it's really kind of hard to fix that. So now that you've done row 2, you can just push all of your little loops down, and we are going to do the same exact thing. Since we've done a couple, we can take this off the starter peg and just push it to the back. Now we're going to turn on this peg, so we're going to wrap it around like this, and then go to the next one. And this one's always going to look a little weird, and it really doesn't matter, because this is going to be in the seam anyway, and it's just because we're turning. And this is really simple because you just repeat the same thing over and over again until it's the length that you need it to be. And what's nice about this is you can actually measure it around your wreath form as you're still knitting it. So you can get it a little more accurate that way than measuring it. So I'll do one more row with you, and then I'll show you how to bind it off. So once again, we're going to wrap it around the peg and then go to the back of the next peg and wrap it around that way. When you're using worsted weight that's doubled up, you always want to be mindful that you're grabbing both loops, so you're not missing any of your loops anywhere, because it could fall apart if you do. So you're just going to repeat that until it's the length that you need it to be, and it'll come out looking like this, just a long panel, and then you'll need to bind it off. So to bind it off, you're just going to be working, so you're going to work the first stitch and the second stitch, just as you normally would. So go ahead and knit both of those off, and then you're going to take this second stitch and put it on the first peg, and then you're going to knit this bottom stitch over the top stitch, and then you take this one and you move it down to the next peg, and you just repeat that until you're out of stitches. So once again, you're going to wrap the first one and the second one. And I'm just going to say first and second because it's the first one that has a stitch on it. So and then you move the second one over to the first one and knit that off, and then move this one back to the second one. And then you're just going to knit both of those again. Move the second one to the first one and knit the bottom over the top. And then move this one back to the other peg. And you just repeat that until you get to your last peg. And then move it back. And you can see that this is already what we have binded off. So you want to make sure that you have, fairly even tension here. You don't want this to be too tight, otherwise it will make your the edge of whatever it is you're making kind of like pucker and look weird. So just try and have fairly even tension, and you don't want it to be tight. Okay, so this is our last stitch. So what I do is I wrap the yarn around one more time, and then I just knit that bottom loop off. And then you can go ahead and cut it. I'm going to cut a really short little tail there because this is just a scrap. So, and then you can just pull that and then give it a little tug, and that will fasten it off. So this is what it looks like when you bind it off. And with loom knitting, you always have to do a little stretching and just kind of tweaking and making sure that everything's laying nice and neat. So that's what it looks like. And you can set your loom aside, and we're going to move on to the actual sewing on the cover to our wreath form. So I left a really long tail here when I bound it off. And I'm just going to thread my needle. And I want to make sure that I don't have my cover twisted anywhere. And I'm going to put my two ends together, and I'm just going to sew it together as neatly as possible. So go ahead and finish sewing your ends together, and then we'll meet back up and we'll start putting our form onto our cover onto our wreath form. Okay, so before you get started seaming, make sure that your panels are wrong side together. I am such a dork. But I went ahead and seamed it with right sides out with wrong sides together, and my seam is on the outside. So don't do that. Put your wrong sides or your right sides together to where both of your wrong sides are facing you, and then seam it together. I just wasn't paying attention, so but it's fine. I will definitely be placing that where I'm going to be putting one of my large decorations, so I'm not even worried about it. But definitely make sure that you're holding your panels right when you need to seam them together. So we're going to be moving on to attaching our panel to the wreath form, and we are going to do that by crocheting it on. So I've already showed you guys how to do this on my last wreath, but we'll go ahead and go over it again real quick in case you haven't seen that tutorial. So I always like to start at my seam, and it doesn't really matter where you attach your yarn It's just kind of my preference is to start at the seam. And hopefully I can get this all in frame and we'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to attach my yarn, the slip knot, and I am using both of my strands still because I don't want to have any variation in color as I'm seaming this up. And since this is loom knit, you're not going to really have any particular stitches to go into. So just kind of single crochet along the edge. Sorry, just making sure you could see. And this way, when you're using both of the same colors that you were using before, it'll all just blend in. So yours won't be quite as snug as mine because I only did 13 stitches on mine and yours will be 15 stitches, so you'll have a couple extra stitches to have some wiggle room. And don't worry about it looking kind of wonky right now. Once you get it on and you're able to kind of position your cover exactly how you want it, everything will go back into place. So you're going to want to just continue that all the way around and then go ahead and bind off, and then go ahead and bind off when you get to the end, and then I will meet back up with you there. Okay, so I finished seaming up mine. My yarn, I just cut it and I fastened off right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these tails that I have here and I'm just going to tuck them inside. So I'm just going to run it through the center of the wreath. And then trim them. And now you can kind of manipulate your cover to where you want it to be. I want my seam to be on the inside. So I just need to kind of rotate it around a little bit. And I think that looks really nice. So now on to the fun part, which is the decorating. So I have my pieces here and I just need to figure out where I want to put them. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut this little string off that was the hanger. If you have not heated up your glue gun, you need to do that. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get all of mine in frame, but you'll kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. So the hat's going to go off to one side, and I am going to be covering up my little screw up there, so no one will even know that I wasn't paying attention. And I think I'm going to put I'll put my sign right there and maybe my roses down here. So something similar to that. I think that will be cute. So obviously I'm going to start with the bigger piece. So you need your hot glue gun. And as usual, you need to be as quick as possible. This is just a wire frame on the inside, so it's kind of hard to glue. Right. So I need to figure out where I want to position my little sign since I got my hat too far over. I'm just not with it today. But I think right there's... kind of debating whether I want to put these flowers on or not. Yeah, I think maybe I will. So I'm just going to put some hot glue around that end and then poke it directly into the crochet fabric. And just hold it there until it dries. Alright, so this is what it looks like. I think it's really cute. And I have this ribbon, just green sparkly ribbon that I'm going to be using as my hook this time. So you just need to figure out how big you want your hook to be and give yourself a little bit of extra to be able to tie it on. You need to figure out exactly where you need it to hang so it's straight. And you're just going to run it so it'll look just like this, and that has glitter everywhere. So I'm just going to kind of pull it back through if I can manage to do that, and then just trim this off. I am going to put a dab of hot glue right there on that knot, just to keep the knot from coming undone. So now you have your loop, and our wreath is complete. So I hope that you guys like this one and have a great day.